Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leveraging LinkedIn for lawyers or potentially for aspiring lawyers as well. I thought this would be a good training to record, especially as we're coming to the end of one year and going into 2024 next year. And so I thought this would be useful for you if you're thinking about 2024 and how you can raise your profile and perhaps use LinkedIn for the first time maybe, or use LinkedIn better next year. So let's have a look at what we've got to cover today. Let's try and get this to move on. Okay, so the first question to ask yourself, I think, is why do you want to use LinkedIn? Because as much as for years I had it as an app on my phone, I had an account, maybe sometimes I would open it, maybe sometimes somebody would tag me in something. It wasn't something that I had any sort of plan for or strategy or any particular reason to use it other than it's a professional platform, there are professionals on there. And I think that that's common for lots of people. And that's why, even if you've just listened to this recording, you probably know a lot more about it and why it's important than a lot of other people do. So well done. But some of the reasons that you might have for using LinkedIn, and they will change. There might be one reason this year, there might be another reason next year. So I think there's a commonly held belief that LinkedIn is for recruitment. So either for recruiters to find people who might be suitable for their roles, or even people who are not recruiters but need to hire someone in their team. They might go and use LinkedIn to find some real people and then contact them and see if they want a job, etc. Or for job hunters as well. And there's been a line of thinking that your profile should really be a bit like a CV, if you like, for recruiters. Now, if you're looking for a job, then that's one thing. But the majority of people, certainly the people I'm training, aren't necessarily looking for jobs. They may be open to opportunities, but that's not what they're using LinkedIn for. So to my mind, it's not so much a CV. We're going to talk about more what it is. So that would be one reason. If you are thinking about looking for a position or a new position, that might be one reason to use LinkedIn. If you are a lawyer, whether you are in a traditional firm or as is the case nowadays, more and more self-employed lawyers, you might be looking for new business, new clients, new contacts. So you might be using LinkedIn for that. You might be using it to network. It might be that actually maybe you're a junior lawyer at the moment and you don't necessarily need to have your own clients or find your own clients. Your work is fed to you. But you might still want to, and I would encourage you to, increase your connections and your network. There's a great phrase, your network is your net worth. And I think there's so much truth in this, in that your network is so powerful. In this career, and I'm sure in many, many others, the connections that you have and that you make can become so valuable as you go through your career. So it is purely through LinkedIn and the connections I've made that I've had so many different opportunities, to join the law firm that I'm at now, speaking opportunities, getting involved with book writing opportunities, people I've met on LinkedIn and then translated that into in-person physical networking events where a relationship's been built. People have changed jobs or recruited people on the basis of these networks. So yeah, lots of reasons to use LinkedIn. And the first question I would encourage you to ask yourself is, for now, for the next 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, what's your reason for using it? What's your main reason? So then a few things to think about is, firstly, will it help you achieve what you want to achieve? And what is that? So that's the first thing, linked very much to the question I've just asked you. Why do you want to use LinkedIn? Because what is it that you want to achieve? Don't use it just because everyone else is, because most other people don't know why they're on there. And that's why it's all a bit haphazard and they don't really have a plan because they don't really know what they're trying to achieve. So as I just mentioned there, a few suggestions for you. One, it might be that you do need to find some new clients and new business. Another, it might be that you want to increase your connections and your network. or you might be looking for a job or work experience or something like that. So what is your goal? I would suggest that there is many things that LinkedIn will be able to help you achieve. If you're not sure, feel free to contact me and we'll have a chat about it. But there aren't many goals I can think of that LinkedIn wouldn't be able to help you achieve. But what is it? What is your goal? And then secondly, now I've put target audience on here. Now your target audience could be many different things depending on your answer to question one. It depends what you want to achieve as to who your target audience is. If you are a lawyer looking to grow your own client base and your own business contacts, then obviously your target audience is probably going to be those clients, the owners of those sorts of client businesses, or the people who instruct lawyers who are in those businesses. Again, it depends on who they are as to who the target would be. If instead you want to connect with more people, then are those people you want to connect with on LinkedIn? Again, I would suggest probably yes is the answer to most of these in a professional work sense. For some of my clients, it's not that they're looking for their actual clients on LinkedIn. So let me explain what I mean by that. I work with some litigation lawyers in my business group, and it's very rare that they would find litigation clients because, as a good friend of mine says, if a business is in trouble and needs litigation advice, they're probably not out networking with people. They're probably crying at home with their head in their hands, which I think makes a lot of sense. So it may not be those direct clients that you're looking for on LinkedIn. It might be the people who advise those clients. So that could be their accountant or their wealth manager or something like that. So it's obviously who is your target audience, and if they are not on LinkedIn, is someone who knows them on LinkedIn and they could become your audience for LinkedIn purposes so that they could introduce you to the people that you want to be introduced to. If you are an aspiring lawyer, and I know we have a few of those who wanted to hear this training, what you're doing here is, of course, you're probably not looking for clients. You are looking for connections. So connections with other law students, other aspiring lawyers, other practicing lawyers. You are building your network of lawyers throughout the UK and perhaps internationally as well, because these are people that you will learn from. Maybe you will meet in real life at some time. Maybe they'll be able to help you get your foot on the ladder with work experience or first jobs or moving jobs. You might also want to follow and or connect with some recruiters as well. And I know a lot of people are thinking, oh no, unless I'm looking for a job, I don't want to be talking to any recruiters. Well, some of my very best friends are recruiters, and good ones aren't out to just try and get you a new job and earn their fee. That's not what they're out to do. They're out to build long-term relationships with people who they can support throughout their careers. So, for example, there's one lovely recruiter that myself and my husband have known for probably 15 plus years now. Now, he's not the only one I would ever speak to if I were looking to change jobs, but he's certainly one of the first I would go to. And he's always been one of the first that my husband would go to. And I always recommend him and introduce him to other people. So build these relationships as early as you can. These recruiters can be your friends. They, I'll say the good ones are always happy to have that conversation with you about what it is you're looking for, what could they recommend for you, and answer all your questions there as well. And then the third thing is, okay, so I've understood that LinkedIn will help me achieve my goals. I'm starting to understand who it is that is my target audience on LinkedIn. What can I do consistently so that I'm gaining momentum all the time? So those are the things that we're going to think about. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about today. Why should we try and get our head around LinkedIn? Why does it matter? How can we actually prepare our page on LinkedIn? So our own profile. Now I've put /sales page, and some of you are already thinking, oh my goodness, what? Think it is a bit like a website for you or a sales page for you. That's what your profile is, or that's how I'd like you to think about it. That say you had your own personal website, that's what you can use this for. And then, as I say, what can you do regularly to build momentum? So if we haven't met before, hello, it's lovely to see you, and lovely that you could join us for this training. My name is Hannah Becko. I am a commercial property lawyer for many, 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 many years, still practice. In fact, I've got a couple of completions I've got to keep an eye on to go on today. Um, but I also started training and coaching lawyers about 7 or 8 years ago now, because after my own journey through building my legal business, almost then burning out, understanding what chronic stress looks like, having to make the decision whether I could stay in my business or not, and how I needed to change that. I went out into the world of business and got a lot of coaching and mentoring and business group support that did not at the time exist in the legal profession. I couldn't find it in the profession, so I went outside to get it. And then what I realized is that this profession needed this sort of support as well. So that's business support, all the way through to, profile raising and visibility, as we're talking about today, and my absolute passion, which is mental health and well-being of lawyers. How do we stop chronic stress, burnout? How do we help people to have great careers that they love, without it taking too much from them? So I also have 3 boys, they're there, and 2 gorgeous nieces who I am very lucky to have been involved with quite a lot over the last few months, as my sister hasn't been well, and I've been able to spend a lot of time with my 2 gorgeous nieces there. So that's what keeps me busy a lot of the time. So the problem with LinkedIn and why we need to try and get our head around this is some of these things. Now, some of these may apply to you, maybe they don't. But the first thing is lawyers don't sell themselves. There is historic reasons for this. Historically, lawyers were not allowed to market their services. And certainly in some countries, certain states of America, and I think in India as well, there are still quite strict rules around selling and marketing and advertising. So solicitors have come from that background. And although in the UK here, those things are much more relaxed now, and there's no problem with putting a big advertisement on a billboard or on a roundabout or in a magazine, we're still quite new to this world. And I think our mindset sort of hasn't shifted yet. Now, what I'm talking about, and it's all about the authenticity piece for me. You'll see, I wrote the book, The Authentic Lawyer, because authenticity matters to me, and I think it's our superpower in terms of, yes, protecting our mental health and well-being, being a great team leader, but also in this part, in the building client relationships, in attracting new clients. Authenticity is key for me, and it's been key in my building all my business relationships. So when I'm talking about selling, I don't mean actually going out there and trying to sell. I mean going out there and building relationships, and the sales take care of themselves. The other problem is that we've never been trained to network. Now, there are some great firms out there doing some great trainings around networking. It's one of my favorite things to train. But historically, there hasn't been any training for this. We've just sort of had to wing it or watch how other people do it and follow. So it's not something we've ever been taught, and it can feel overwhelming. Where do I start? Even if we're just looking at LinkedIn as one example, if you're not very familiar with it or you don't use it a lot, you just log in and there's all these things going on. What do you do? How do you actually get some traction with it and get started? So I want to be able to help you with that today. So while you listen to this, what I would like you to think about is, what would you like to do differently? So after listening to this training, what would you like to do differently straight away? So in the next 5 to 7 days, maybe in the next day or 2. What would you like to do in the next month, the next 3, 4, 5 weeks? And what would you like to achieve in the next year or the next few years? Because, as I say, if I look back before 2015, 2016, I might have had an account on LinkedIn, but I was not active on there and I didn't do anything with it. Whereas as soon as I made a decision that that was going to be my platform, that's where I was going to build my brand, my visibility, attract clients, attract new connections, make new networks. That's what I've done, and it works. It works. It does take a little bit of thought and a bit of planning, and you need to apply a little bit of time to it. It doesn't need to take a lot of time. But where would you like to be in the next year or the next few years with your LinkedIn? So here are some brilliant stats. So on LinkedIn, just under half of the people who are registered there are actually active on LinkedIn. Now that's interesting because a few years ago, probably about 2018, the stat on that I heard was 1%. 1% of users were active. Now I think because of the pandemic and because it was the only way to network, really, I think, before the pandemic, then that has increased quite significantly. So as I say, a few years ago, only about 1% of users were active, and now we've got about just under half of the users on LinkedIn are currently active. 73% of professionals say that they trust the information they find on LinkedIn. So if you are someone who does post content and things to train people on, educational content, if you like, then people are trusting what they read on LinkedIn. So that's really helpful to know as well. People are looking for information to help them solve their problems. So whatever that is, if it is a client who's got a legal problem, or they're looking for someone to help them with their will, or someone to buy or sell their house for them, or if they are a student and they're looking for how to get into the profession, people are looking for information to solve their problems, and they will look on LinkedIn. What's very, very interesting is if you Google certain topics or you Google people, if you've never Googled yourself, Google your own name and see what comes up. It's really good to know. Often LinkedIn will be one of the first entries that comes up on the Google search. So it is somewhere that people are going to get answers. And it helps you build connections all the way across the world. So not just in England or in the UK, but connections all the way across the world that can open up lots of doors for you as well. So if you want to get more active on LinkedIn, what should you think about? What should you do? Now, even if you are pretty active, but you haven't looked at any of these things for a while, I would encourage you to use this holiday period, this break period, if you like, to have a think about this. So first of all, yes, what is your niche and who are your ideal targets or connections? Now, this very much depends on, going back to the beginning, what you want to achieve with using LinkedIn. Are you looking for more clients? In which case, what is the niche your clients work in? One of my solicitor coaching clients, she works with the logistics industry. So her ideal clients are people who work in the logistics industry who would be able to instruct solicitors. That would be her sort of target client, if you like. If you are, as I say, maybe an aspiring lawyer, a student, or somebody like that, then your ideal targets and connections might be in part other aspiring lawyers who you could make contacts with, it might be recruiters, it might be qualified lawyers in the areas that you would like to work in, both geographical and the area of work that you want to follow. So it really depends on what you want to achieve as to who your niche is. Again, I'm always happy to have conversations with people if they're really not sure. This is sort of one of my superpowers. People throw a lot of information at me. I can sift it, and then I can tell them who I can hear is their niche, or who I would suggest they should focus on. So always happy to talk to people about that. The next thing to think about is writing your profile. So we've got headline, profile, and photo, and I want to talk about all of those. So your profile is the sort of blurb bit that people can click on and read about you. So again, this depends on what you're trying to achieve on LinkedIn as to what you would put in here. But what you want it to do is to be something that if people were to click on your profile, your ideal people who you want to connect with, if they were to click on your profile, what would sound interesting to them? And you see many that are written like a CV. They don't need to be, because if they want to see your CV, they can go down and see your education and your experience. That's on a separate part of your profile. You don't need to talk about that in the space where you have for the blurb, if you like. So there's lots of different ways to do this. And what I would suggest you do is have a look at some profiles that you really like, or people that you really respect, or you see their posts and think, oh, I like what they're doing. Go and sit. Obviously, we're not going to copy or anything like that, but to get some ideas, go and have a look at some other people's profiles. If you don't want them to know that you've been having a nosy at them, then you can do that in private mode. You can go into your settings and you can select private mode. And then when you go and have a look at a few different people's profiles, they don't know that it was you that had a look. That's really up to you. So that's what I would suggest, is have a look at some profiles of people that you like the sound of, and see how they've structured it. The next thing to think about is your headline. So this is the bit that appears under your name. Now, what you see lots of people do is put law student at, or property lawyer at, or whatever. Now, lovely, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of those on LinkedIn. So if someone saw your headline, would you stand out from all those other thousands of people? Probably not. So what you want to open with is something that makes you sound more interesting, yes, but is relevant to what you do. But maybe is a little bit more of an explanation as to what you actually do. And also make it searchable. And what do I mean by that? If your target audience, so whether that's clients or whoever it is that you want to be finding you on LinkedIn, were to go and search in the search bar, what would they be searching for? So yes, they might be searching for property lawyer or probate lawyer, or something like that. So you do get quite a lot of characters in your headline. So there's nothing to stop you putting property lawyer or family lawyer or whatever in there somewhere towards the end, so that if they're searching, it will come up. But it's perhaps not what you want to open with, because the reason I say that is this: when you go and like somebody's post or comment on somebody's post, the bit that people will be able to see without clicking on your profile is obviously your picture, your name, and the first part of your headline. So it's that first part of your headline that you get the chance to say something about you that people would then think, oh, I wonder who that person is. I'll go and have a look at their profile. So that's the part about making it interesting, something that really says something about you that stands out. Then add and I've said professional in speech marks there, because what is professional? I don't mean it has to have been taken professionally, and I don't necessarily mean that it's professional in the sense that you're sitting there in a suit and tie or you know, whatever it is. And it's in speech marks there for a reason, because what's professional to one person may not be professional to another. Now, let me give this example. Normally, I would say not pictures with your pets or not pictures with your family, because it is a professional site. And so really it wants to be a sort of you in work mode type photo. That's what we're really looking for here, not, you know, on the beach or sipping cocktails with your friends and that sort of thing. That's not really what we're looking for here. But there are some exceptions. One of my clients is a family lawyer, and she has a lovely picture of herself with her dog on her knee. Now, she has had many clients who've said to her, I chose you because you had that profile picture with your dog. I like dogs. It made you look approachable. And so for her, it works really, really well. Now, were she a corporate lawyer or a finance lawyer, something like that, I'm not so sure that the dog on the knee would work. It might, but it might be more of a risk. Whereas because she's in that sort of arena with family, and I would suggest probably wills and probate and things like that, it would work well for as well, that it really works well for her. So as I say, it's different for different people, but it's probably not going to be a picture of you at you know, a friend's party or on the beach. And then the final thing to think about in terms of what to do first, if you like, is this phrase, curate your feed. Now, what on earth do I mean by that? Sometimes I'll start working with new clients and they'll say to me, but I really don't like LinkedIn. It's just full of cat videos or dog videos or people talking about politics or people moaning about their jobs. I'm not interested. I open it and I don't want to read any of it. Now, the reason for that is the people that you are currently following or connected to. And for a lot of people, if they set up their account on LinkedIn 15, 20 years ago, they probably just connected with the people they worked with at the time and maybe one or two people they met at networking events, and they've never updated it. So curate your feed means, who are you connected to? Are they actually the people you want to hear from and who want to hear from you? Or are they people you worked with 10, 15 years ago? Now, they might still very well be your ideal targets or connections, but you need to check. So if you're not seeing the sorts of things you want to see on your feed, you need to think about following and connecting with other people who are talking about the things that you want to talk about. So of course, you know, for me, especially in the mental health, wellbeing and training arena, a lot of my connections are people like law care, like legal recruiters who talk a lot about mental health and well-being and all those sorts of things. So those are the posts I tend to see, because those are the people I follow. Those are the people I engage with. I comment on their posts. I like their posts. So LinkedIn learns that that's what I want to see, and that's what it shows me. So this isn't something you can do overnight, but what you could do is have a look at who your current connections are. Are they still relevant to you, or are they just your best friends from school or you, actually they're not in the legal market anymore or close to it, and they wouldn't necessarily be talking about things that you want to read about. So maybe you don't need those connections anymore. That's for you to decide. But who might your new connections be, so that you can start building up a feed that is interesting to you, that you actually want to read about. So that's what I mean by that. Now, getting traction with it. So we've got started, we've updated everything, the photo, the headline, the profile. We've started looking at who our connections are and who we follow. How do we get some traction with it? So depending on where you're at, if you are a student or maybe a trainee, you may not be looking at creating content at this point. But if you're a bit further along in your career, then you may be creating content. So yes, writing posts, maybe writing articles, and having media on your profile. So when you go to your profile, you can add media. Now, what sorts of things could you use here? If you do have your own website, some clients do, then they might use that website. If you've been interviewed on a podcast or something, you might have a link to that. If you use YouTube and you've got some videos, something you've been involved in, a talk or something you've given, and there's a link to YouTube, you could use that. So things that you have been involved in that have links outside of LinkedIn, if you like, then that can be the media that you put on your profile. Share photos of what you're doing. Now, again, I wouldn't go too far with the holiday photos. I think there's a nice balance. I would probably say about 20 or 30%. I tend to save the more social posts for the weekend, so for Friday and the weekend, because people are more sort of looking at LinkedIn just in their downtime then. So you can do more of the social posts, holidays and things, but do have a balance between social posts and more professional ones, if you like, or business related ones. But what I mean by share photos of what you're doing is often, again, clients will say to me, I want to post, but I've got no idea what to post about. Well, what did you do that day? Did you go to a conference or a talk? Take a photo either outside or inside, and then you can share the photo and share something useful that you learned at that talk. Even if it's a webinar, do you take a screenshot or something like that? And you can say, look, I learned this today at this really useful webinar, something like that. So within most days, sometimes, and you go back through my feed and you'll see it, sometimes it's a screenshot of the coffee cup I'm using at the time with my laptop and what I might be working on, subject to obviously, client confidential data being on the screen or anything like that. So use what you're doing as content ideas, share photos and put some useful description, something that people can think about or learn something from based on what you're sharing. It's always a good idea to mix up your posts on LinkedIn. So I'm not quite sure what the algorithm is doing these days. I know the last time I did sort of a big training on LinkedIn myself, they were preferring things like video and photo. But I have heard that that's not quite the same anymore. And so it's safest to have some posts that are just plain text, some posts that have image and text, and potentially some posts that have video. So it's good to mix that around a little bit. So what should you do regularly? Now, when I say regularly, for some people, this is daily. I do this daily. For other people, it might be once a week if you're just getting started out, don't want to overwhelm you. For some people, it's 2 or 3 times a week. So it's up to you. If you're brand new, then I would say let's start with like once a week, maybe. If you do use LinkedIn quite a lot, but not strictly, then maybe you say to yourself, I'm going to do it 3 times a week or whatever. So it's up to you to decide what regularly looks like. But if you want to just keep some momentum and actually have a bit of a plan, so instead of just opening the app and sort of, oh yeah, scrolling through it, that was nice, now half an hour's gone, actually, here's some things you can do. So first of all, check if you've had any new connection requests that you've not responded to. So has someone tried to connect with you and you've missed it? Now, who should you say yes to? Now, this is a brilliant question. And again, I'm sorry to say it depends on what you're trying to achieve and who you're trying to connect with. My personal benchmark, if you like, of whether I connect with somebody, if they send me a request, is do we have other connections in common? Because if we have other connections in common, then they're probably somewhere in and around the legal world. So, they would be someone I want to connect with. If it's quite obvious that, they're in another country, they're nothing to do with the legal world, and they might be trying to sell something that I'm not interested in, then I'm probably not going to accept that request. So it's up to you to sort of set some parameters around who you're going to accept and who you're not. I would always encourage you to accept more than decline. I say I only decline the ones where I think, no, you're really not relevant to what I'm trying to achieve, if you see what I mean. Maybe you send some connection requests. So LinkedIn very helpfully tells you suggested people you can connect with. And obviously, the more active you're on there, the more accurate LinkedIn will be in terms of sending you options of people you could connect with. And again, I tend to go by, do we have connections in common already? If we do, then, we're obviously in the same sort of networking circles, and we might know some of the same people, so they could be useful connections, etc. So that's where you send some connection requests. Now, there are different schools of thought, and I've had training by experts on both schools of thought as to whether you just hit send connection request or whether you send a message. Now, if you're new and starting out, I would say no message, because I just want you to get some new connections, to start seeing some traction and to start building your LinkedIn profile. So I don't want you to sit there and think about polite, friendly messages, and then that takes half an hour and then you never send it. So just literally find some people to connect with and connect. Just press connect and leave it. Is someone that you've met at a networking event or whatever, then I do send a little message. I say it was lovely to meet you, or, oh, I see we were both at that event and we didn't get a chance to meet, or whatever. If I have a genuine and authentic message to send them, then I will send that message with the connection request. If not, it's just connect. What else can you do regularly? You can have a look at your feed. So once you've done that, connected with a few people, checked you've not missed any connection requests, then again, depending on how much time you have a look through your feed. Is there anything relevant to you that you can like and support that person's post? Can you comment on it? Because what we're doing there is we're supporting other people by liking their post and commenting on their post. We're helping them to have that post seen by more people, because LinkedIn likes posts that are popular. So if you post something and nobody likes it or comments on it, then it's not going to be pushed out to more people. It's not going to be pushed out to more people's feeds. So I like to support the people that I'm connected with, and I'll do that by liking or commenting on their post. And then finally, and this depends where you're at, you might want to post or share something a few times a week. Now, this really depends whether you are there to just get familiar with LinkedIn, if you're new to your career, or if you're out there looking for clients, then it's going to be something different. But you might want to post something or share about an event you've been at, something you've learned, whatever it is, a few times a week if you can. But again, that's something to work up to. So what I'd like you to think about after listening to that is, what do you need to put into place after listening to this today? What is it that you want to try? Do you want to go and have a look and see, actually, does anything need updating? My photo, my headline, my profile? Do you want to drop me an email and say, can we have a quick chat about this? Because I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what I should put as my headline. I'm not quite sure who I should want to connect with, who's my ideal target audience, etc. So if a conversation about that would help, then do give me a shout. So I liked this picture, getting started with go. It's like the phrase, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the next best time is today. So yes, had you planted a tree 20 years ago, it would be a huge, beautiful tree now. You plant it today, it's got to start, and it's going to be a few years before you see it. But it's the same with using something like LinkedIn. Yes, you didn't start 5 years ago, maybe. You didn't even start a year ago. But if you start now, in 6 or 12 months' time, you will have a very different looking LinkedIn profile, and who knows what sort of connections or results you might have seen from it. So in terms of getting started, as I've said, some things to think about. How up to date is your photo? What's your headline? Does it sound interesting to someone who reads that? What does your profile say about you? How does it read? Does it sound like you? Does it sound like the way you would speak? And if relevant to you, have you added any articles or media links? So if you've been interviewed or you've been on a podcast or whatever, if you have a website or you're mentioned on a website, then those might be media links that you want to add to your profile, because then if anybody does, you leave a lovely comment on someone's post and they think, oh, who is that person? They're going to click on your profile, they're going to go and see all these things. And then hopefully that's going to mean they want to connect with you and obviously continue learning from you, or for you to continue learning from them, which is what it's all about. Thank you very much for that. And as I say, if you have any questions at all, or you want to have a quick chat about how it would work for you personally, then do drop me an email. It's hannah@authenticallyspeaking.co.uk. Thank you.